Hello, family. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you're listening from. And thank you for tuning in and listening to the introductory episode of the Goodly podcast. And here we're very excited to launch, and we've got a very interesting topic to kickstart. On this episode, we shall be discussing a topic that's very important to corporate organizations, non-governmental organizations, and also to individuals. So people tend to review this topic every year, the beginning of every year. And in the UK, we tend to talk about it at the beginning of the new financial year in April. And so many people generically tend to talk about it January 1st, aka New Year resolutions. So as you can rightly guess, we will be talking about goal setting. So just to start with, I've got amazing people here seated with me today. I'm not going to be having a conversation alone. So we shall be taking turns to introduce ourselves. So I'll start with my millennial Auntie Bailey.
Okay, hi guys. Good afternoon, morning, evening, wherever you are. My name is Missy. I am a chorister at City of David Canterbury. I also work as part of the social media team. In terms of career, my background is as a pharmacist, but I currently work in regulatory finance. I am a mother to a lovely daughter and a wife to a lovely husband. Thanks for having me here today.
Oh, thanks for coming. And Prof.
Okay, thank you so much for having me as well. And good day to everyone. Oluwadunsin Adekola is my name. And currently I'm a member of City of David, Canterbury, and part of the youth leadership team. And as far as my career is concerned, I presently lecture as one of the high institutions in the UK, studies something related to conservation, ecology, and I'm quite passionate about teaching. And so, yeah, that's it for now.
Thank you, genius. And the auntie of the house,
Hi everyone, my name is Irene Omunu. I'm part of City of David Canterbury. I'm a wife, mother of two. In my day job professionally, I'm an artist, I'm an author and creative consultant. So yeah, I'm happy to be here. Interesting things ahead.
Nice to have you, Auntie Irene. Nice to have you. So just to delve into the subject very quickly, we're talking about goal setting and how to achieve our goals. And as it were, we'll be discussing the recipes as if we were cooking a meal. So what are the ingredients that will come together to help people achieve their goals? And to start with, is there a difference between goals and wishes? Sometimes we say, I would love to do this, not necessarily fine tune it into a goal. So is there a difference between a goal and a wish? So anyone?
I think there's a difference, but goals are influenced by dreams and wishes. So it's part of it. You can have a wish or a dream and it stays there. But until you put the plans in place to actually achieve that dream, for example, you might want, I don't know, a Lamborghini. I'm sorry, it's material example, or a Ferrari. And your income right now cannot afford a Ferrari. It would remain a dream until you put plans in place to say that within the next 5-10 years, I'm going to achieve and buy this Ferrari. And then you work towards that. So at that point, it changes from a dream or a wish to an actual goal. My thoughts.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
No, I think that's so spot on. I think for me, from what I gleaned from what she said is basically your wishes basically become the fuel for your goals. Okay, because if you have a goal that you're not really passionate about, you probably won't achieve it because you don't really want it. So the things we wish for will usually be the strength that we use to achieve that goal in the end, whatever it is. So I think they are kind of intertwined.
Beautiful. Do you have any practical experience about that? your wishes or your dreams translating into goals, and then something you've now eventually gone ahead to achieve? Do you have anything like that?
Yes, for me, quite agree with what you've said. And I think the two main terms there actually involve intentionality when it comes to goals, and then the time frame. I think she mentioned the fact that your goal should have a defined time frame to make it achievable, and then to have direction as well. So for me, when I finished my first degree and I got a job as a lecturer, I knew I wanted to do a PhD. I knew it was part of the career goal, and I made a plan. I said I will have my PhD before I clocked 30. Though I didn't get it until I actually was over 30, but it was my goal. I became very intentional about that because it was actually part of my career plan. So I have to do my master's, I have to do my PhD, and I have to put a time frame on that as well. So I believe very strongly that goals has to come with intentionality. It has to come with having a time frame. And if you don't achieve it within the time period, you can still revisit and reassess just to know that you have a plan that is workable, that is achievable, and that is time bound. Yeah.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. Some of us actually, some people have the thoughts or mindset that life is about Q, etc. And what will be. So you don't necessarily have to like have goals in place. So what's your position on this? Are goals necessary? Or we can just live life by chance. Whatever will be yours anyways. So which position do you sit in as regards this subject matter? Are goals necessary?
I mean, if I'm really honest, I think especially as Christians, because we are speaking from a Christian perspective. So I would say that primarily Christians struggle in this area quite a bit because on one hand, you want to put your Christian hat on and, Romans 8:28 will just basically pop into your head, or Jeremiah 29:11. Oh, I know the thoughts he has for me, thoughts of good. But that doesn't take all of the work out of our hands. I think God really leaves a lot of space for us to make decisions and determine the course of our lives. So if I'm just like, oh, I'm saved now, so God's going to do everything. When you look outside of the Christian church or even outside of faith, you see how hard people in the secular world work because they're striving and they don't expect any handouts. So when they're setting goals with like, my life depends on this. I get one shot to live. I get one chance at this career. There's so many other people who want what I want. So they're really gunning for it, and they are consistently setting goals and then rehashing those things and seeing if it's working. And what I've noticed is even in my walk as a Christian, I've tended to go, well, if God wants me to have it, then he'll give it to me. And sometimes it's a form of giving up because of fear. It's also something that we kind of fall back on as a crutch when we feel like we're not good enough, rather than saying, look, I have the Holy Spirit in me, so I can do whatever I need to do. If I need to get that qualification or do that, I will do it. We then go to things like, oh no, I just pray and fast and, declare and things like that. So I feel like there is a space for faith to come in. And I think in my career and personal life, I've seen faith give me the extra edge. But I think that there is a baseline where you must set that goal, and it will not happen unless you take active steps.
Beautiful. You want to say something, brother?
Yes, I agree as well. Like, faith is not anti-goals. I think the proof of faith is even goal setting. That faith is a substance. It's not abstract. It's tangible. And with that, if as believers we should be goal oriented as well, because like she said, we have only one life to live, and we don't have eternity to do the will of God. And when achieve our goals, we are not glorifying ourselves, so to speak. We're actually speaking about the glorious God that has given us the mind, the brain, the capacity to achieve those goals. And so, are goals necessary? I think they are. So far, you have a life, and then you believe that life is not yours. You've been bought with a price, and then you need to use that life to reflect the almightiness of God. Then one of the ways you will not be ashamed to yourself, to your generation, to the God you claim you serve, is to showcase the beauty of this God to the outside world that don't understand maybe the exegesis of the scriptures, but they understand results. They understand the power of creativity. They understand intelligence. They understand excellence, and they know that those things are actually beyond. To them, it's just your gift, your talents, but we know that when we have God and the Spirit of God, we have edge. And because we have an edge, we need to show the outside world that it's real. So I believe it's necessary, and I believe that we should as well be goal-minded, be goal-oriented as a proof of our faith.
Beautiful, beautiful. So that means setting goals shows how intentional you are about life, yeah? So we should have a goal. So can children also set goals? Are we discussing goal setting as a strictly maybe 18 rated subject or 13-year-old rated subject? Can children set goals? Can parents help children set goals and guide them into achieving their goals? Anybody?
Yeah, absolutely. I think children should definitely set goals. So for children, I think it would be small, achievable goals, but it is essentially, I want to do this, dad or mom. How do I get to doing this? So how do I get to achieving this? Children as young as 4, 5, as long as they're interested in saying, like, even if it is like learning instruments or something, and they're quite interested in that, I think it is, the onus is on the parents to be able to establish how to work together with the children to get to that point. So yes, children, I don't think there are limitations when it comes to age around certain goals.
Oh, beautiful. So that means whether you're an adult or you're a child, as we talked about dreams the other time. So children now, I want to be a pilot when I grow up. I want to be this. I want to play football. So children also kind of like set goals, but it's definitely up to the parents to guide them. And I wish many parents would just seize that opportunity to help the children to also set goals, guide them into achieving their goals. Beautifully said. And an interesting one happens, especially towards the end of the year, when the year is wrapping up. December, let's say 28, you're beginning to introspect and then retrospect, wherever the case is. And then 30th, the fire, the heat is getting, it's just keeps on increasing. And then 31st, you're like, yeah, coming next year, I'm not going to talk to this person. I'm going to break away from this person. And then by the time you start counting your New Year resolutions or your goals for the coming year, you're listing up to 20 things you want to do or you do not want to do in the coming year. So my question will be this: how many goals should one have? How many goals should you have?
That's a funny one, isn't it? I mean, I think as you were speaking, I think I was thinking about maybe my point of view, and also something I read earlier in the year about, it was on LinkedIn, it was about the 19th of January being something they tagged the saddest day of the year, because that's the point at which people start to literally just fail at their resolutions, in quote. So if it's going to the gym or whatever it was that they planned to do, at that point, people start to see like a lot of people dropping off from the newfound discipline. So I think for me, what I've realized, and it's funny that this year I didn't have, clear cut like goals that I wrote down or anything, because I realized that for me, goal setting is about what really makes you feel like you're in purpose. It's not really just, why am I making these? Like, for example, I'll give you 2 very clear ones I've always wanted to do. Like, for example, a major one is I've always wanted to finally be fluent in French. But then I got married, became a mum, and these are all excuses. Because at first it was just, I just loved the language, and then I thought, oh, this would be really good for my career. But it's been more than a decade of on and off lessons, and I've never been able to fully complete that. You were talking about goals and children. So if I'm telling my children now, do you have to keep at this keyboard thing? And I've not finished French. So rather than going, oh, last year was French, this year is Spanish, no. I know what my purpose is. I know the things I need to achieve. So whatever I didn't do last year that I know God told me to do, That's my New Year resolution. While I'm praying for mercy and like time to redeem the time that I've lost. So it's how can I be a better mother? How can I be a better Christian? How can I serve people better? If there's things in my health I need to cut out, this diet is a huge one. You know, if it's sugar, if it's too much time on social media, I started with really, really small achievable goals so I'm not weighed down. And then I'm working my way up. So I don't know about other people here.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I wouldn't put I wouldn't put a number to it as to how many you should set. However, I think you need to be able to understand the most important. So I would say yearly, list out the important goals. Have your journal or whatever, if you want to list it down mentally, whatever it is, have your goals and list down the most important ones. And then you need to break them down into seasons or quarters. So you say for the next 3 months, I want to achieve a weight loss. That's a huge one. That's one I'm currently dealing with. And I'm grateful that I'm achieving it. I've lost a bit of weight and working towards it. But it took an entire year for me to even lose this tiny amount of weight. But the point is that I feel like you break them down into smaller pieces. So I think studies have shown that you can have between 3 to 5 goals at a time. So I would advise that maybe 3 or 5, 3 to 5 in between. And then you focus on that at a time, do one thing at a time so that you don't get overwhelmed. You don't get, the fear that she talked about that you're just like, oh, I'm not doing this anymore. Or you give up. A lot of people would have a lot of things that they want to achieve on the first day. I know she talked about the 19th, but even between the first and second day, you would find someone the 1st of January, I am doing this, I have this. Second day, everyone, it becomes a dream. It becomes a dream. So really and truly, it's those that they put plans in place to say, I want to achieve this goal that keeps going the second day, the third, and then the 19th. And, you keep at it. So for it not to just remain as a dream, I think when you have too much, it would be overwhelming. It's okay to list them all down, have your journal, list them all down, and then try to prioritize. Of course, with the guidance of God, you need to pray for the ability to be able to discern and say, God, where are you leading me towards? Which of this should I focus on? Which one should I pick? And things like that. And so once God gives you that guidance and the faith that we talked about would help you in determining that. So once you have that, focus on that one at a time.
Beautiful. Bro, to send you to say something.
Yes, thinking of what else to say after all these amazing contributions, I agree as well. The purpose is very important, and I think she mentioned that the purpose of life is a life of purpose. And then when you bring down your purpose, you know what you have been called to do, and then why am I trying to lose weight? What's the motive?
Yeah.
Why am I trying to learn French? What is the motive?
True.
Why am I trying to do days and days? And then when you know that, when I was about to start my PhD, my plan for the next 3 years was just completing my PhD. I had no other goals. I had no other plans because of the peculiarity of that season. And I think she mentioned season. So I won't put a number to it as well. Yeah. But I think goals should be something that you can believe in yourself and in God that you can achieve within a short time. I don't think it's wise to have 10, 15 goals
exactly
in a year. I think you should be one step at a time. And when you're done with one, you can always add one more and then have a scale of preference. Which one is the number one? Which one is the number 2, number 3? And with that, we can always tick those boxes after 1 month, after 2 months, and before you know it, by the end of the year, you're happy with yourself. You're glad because you've done a lot. It's like I said, in 3 years that my only goal was to finish a PhD, I had other personal developments. What will I put it now? Things that I was doing. I was reading books, but those were not really goals. Those were my daily kind of lifestyle. But my major goal at that time was just to complete my PhD. And that was it. So, I think our goals should be very small. When I mean small, I'm not saying small in size. I'm just saying we should have like maybe 1 or 2 per time. And then we can always add to it and then like that. So
beautifully said. So I can remember growing up, I'll have like almost 10 projects trying to do, and I do not complete any one of them. So it's like jumping from one to the other. At the time you remember you've got number 1, you're already trying to work out number 8, and then by the time you're going back to number 1, you've left number 10, so nothing works out well eventually. So it's about the attainability of those goals, that you just keep it sweet, short, simple, something you can action upon, something you can achieve, and then you can always move to the next stage. So I will be asking, how should we set goals? So now that we're talking about, it has to be attainable, don't have too much. I think these are sort of like guidelines about setting of a goal. So what should inform goal setting? What should inform goal setting? Anybody?
I
Yeah.
mean, I can jump in really quickly. In terms of I guess we're talking personally, because I mean, you can have like SMART and all these acronyms that people use to like judge and like gauge things. But for me, a huge thing I've learned about myself is my stress test. So what I usually tend to do is just to motivate myself, especially at the beginning of the year. So if I have a list of goals, let's say it's 3 to 5 healthy goals, yeah, what I tend to do is I will list those goals and I will give them a stress indicator. So how difficult is this, and that? So I will start from the smallest thing, and people talk about that for debt. If you listen to people who help with like financial management and things like that, they always say, don't try and pay off your huge £100,000 debt at the beginning. Start from your little one, start from the smallest credit card and work your way up. Because then when you have that, dopamine release of, I've paid off this thing, it's doable, it's working. So for example, I mean, let's use this podcast as an example. You didn't set your goal as, for my first podcast, I'm going to have the most famous pastors in Kent come together in a room. No, you said, look, I'm going to tell my pastor that I'd love to have a podcast for the church. Then I'm going to buy some equipment. And then you're doing all these little bits and you're building towards it. And you can see your goal getting closer, but you're not giving up. You're getting more excited. So for me, what works is I set my goals and then I start out to achieve the one that's the easiest to achieve so that I get that encouragement. So that's what I do.
Great. And Dr. Jensen?
No, I would just have to reiterate on what I've said about purpose as well. Like when the question is about how should we set goals, I think the question is more why. And I think it's a very difficult question. The question of how. Anybody can buy a car with their mouths. Anybody can get things done by just wishes. And I think we've dealt with that. But the question is, how do we get that done? I think it's very important that goals are self-motivated. When I mean self-motivated, I'm saying, what's the motivation behind those goals? Am I trying to compete with someone? Am I trying to show that I can do this? Or is it in line with my purpose? Is it in line with the will of God for my life? What is this going to do to my career? And ultimately, what is it going to do to bring people to the knowledge of the truth of God's word and to God? So with that mindset, I think then you can ask for the help of God, because you are doing what He has already designed you to do. Because I think failure comes when we are doing something that we have not been endowed to do. When you are trying to be like someone else, when you are trying to achieve something that someone else has achieved, and you think, okay, if everyone is doing this, then let me just do it as well. But if it's something that you have been gifted to do, and then you now plan to get that done, I believe one way to do that, and based on everything we've talked initially, is to, number one, is in line with God's plans for your life, line with purpose, and then as well, you just have those steps. Okay, I want to buy this because this thing will glorify God. How then do I get this? How then will I buy this? I need so and so amount of money. If I contribute £1 a day, how much will I get in the next 3 weeks to get this done? And then with that, eventually, because you are actually now try and put all those goals now into small, what's the right one? Is it objectives or steps? Yeah, exactly. Just to make it because talking about recipe. Now, the main soup itself is the actualization of that goal, which is the actualization of the will of God for your life, your purpose. But there are small things like the onions, like the pepper, like the salt. What do I need to learn more? Do I need to spend 1 hour a day listening to other people that have done something in that line? It's like the first 1 week, you can't touch anything. I always share this testimony. The first 2 years to my PhD, I was frustrated, overwhelmed. I had nothing to show for it. But 6 months after, I had like 2 papers. So in other words, I started building up those things 2.5 years before, but I felt I was not doing anything because I had nothing to show for it. So at every time that we're actually doing something in the actualization of our goals, it might not be tangible, but there's something that is happening to us in our mind. There's something that is happening to the actualization of those goals, and then the date will just happen. You would think it's happened suddenly. No, it's accumulation of things that you have been doing every day. The waking up by 4 a.m., the sleeping at so and so time, then everything comes together now to the challenge of those goals. So I think when we put those steps together, then we get it done. If that makes sense.
Beautiful. And Timisi, do you want to say anything?
No, it's fine. They said it all.
Okay.
Completely agree.
Do you want to talk about SMART?
Smart. Yeah, something that is specific. You guys can help me. So measurable, smart, attainable, achievable results. Is that realistic,
Time bound.
result oriented, and yeah, so that's very important. I think that should also inform it. But as Christians, as they've said, God first. Pray that whatever it is you're trying to set aligns with God's will for you. And then yes, once it's specific and all, the smart approach would help you attain it.
Beautiful. So it comes from the place of vision. So vision precedes the writing of the goals per se. So you must have a clear vision for your life as an individual to start with. Very impressive. And the reason why I just mentioned that SMART tool is because I had a friend and she says that she still proposes to buy a house. And she doesn't know what type of house she wants to get. And she doesn't know how many rooms. She doesn't know what her credit score is. She's just saving money. And I know there are a lot of people in that particular group or subset or cluster, as it were, that we have a dream, we want to achieve something, but we do not really have identified processes that will get us to that end. So do we need to think about all of those things while setting the goal? So, like he said, if I want to, let's say, become a very good orator as well, I need to commit time to watching YouTube videos, to maybe subscribe to a mentorship class and try to get closer to someone who can walk me through, and then until I achieve the goal. So, anyone?
Okay, so this might seem counterintuitive, right? But when I hear that, my initial reaction is you want to be really careful about being too practical. And I know this completely throws in it kind of shakes everything I've said before. But I think as people of faith, it's really important that if you try to get every duck in a row before you set your goals, what will happen is you will set goals that are humanistic. You will completely remove God from the equation, and your goals will then be things that are possible. And as Christians, God didn't call us to possible lives. He said, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. So, once we've achieved the first box of purpose, and the Lord brought to my mind John 21 and verse 3, when Simon Peter says, obviously they're heartbroken, Jesus is dead. He's not showing up. We don't know where he is. I'm going fishing. This is the same Simon Peter that Jesus had said, I'm going to make you fish for men. So he knew that Jesus had told him, this is not your trade. This is not going to be the logical goal setting. I'm sure he was making money from fishing. And all the disciples followed him along because it made sense in the scheme of things. Look, our Savior that we thought was the Messiah is dead. I have a wife. At least Peter had a wife. Probably had kids. And then you have to think of your future. Now, half of the people in Jerusalem are probably going to kill you if they know you already denied it. Best thing you can do is just chill. What can I do to make money? What was I doing before this whole Jesus thing began? I'm going fishing. And he failed again in his fishing. And we can see at the end of that chapter where Jesus says, look, if you love me, feed my sheep. Go and do the fishing of men that I told you. And so for me, I have a background in law. I have a background in marketing. That made sense. It was the cookie cutter thing to do. So to get a bit personal, when you're from an African background, lawyer, doctor, engineer, there's some certain things that people will say, and it's not their fault. Our parents grew up in colonial settings. They grew up in the country that said, look, if you have a job, you are sure to make your life work. And they worked really hard. So they thought that's what would work for us, but we're in a different era. So what I would say is follow the natural God-given gifts that he's given you. Ask for God's opinion. And if God's given you a word for your life, then your goals should be around that. Not ridiculous goals like I'm going to be a billionaire tomorrow, but I'm going to open a business. It's better than I'll just look for any job. That's a goal. But any job is not God. Yeah.
So that specificity, you must have a clear focus. I mean, it's not just wind just blowing you into any direction kind of a thing. Oh, beautiful.
And I think if I can add to that, just to add to that, the friend of yours that started with savings, I think she's still doing well. Like she's still doing something. Like you can't have everything all planned out at the beginning. You might have a skeletal idea of what and what I will get done. But part of when you have the money and then to think about a kind of house, I don't know, but I don't think that's going to be very difficult. I'm not sure it's going to be very difficult if you have the money. So if part of the plan is to start saving, I think she's still doing something in the actualization of the goal of getting a house. And I just feel like saying this all over and over again. That's what's the motivation behind the goal. And as already said as well, purpose. Why am I going to school? Why do I want to have those results? Why do I want to have this more money? Why do I want to have this kind of life? If it's all about God, then I think we can keep chasing those goals because then it's worth it.
Beautiful. Beautiful. Well said. Well said. So I don't know if you can share stories about maybe your personal experiences about when you did set a goal versus when, okay, you had a wish, but you didn't translate that wish into a goal. And then eventually you took up the courage to turn that wish into a goal. And then you now achieved it. Do you have any instance like that? Because a lot of us have that problem of just we keep on building the dream. Today, I love this sports car. And then next tomorrow, I just found a new model of it. And then my dream keeps getting sweeter, but I do not translate into baby steps that will eventually take me into that. So
I would use the house example that you said. It had always been a dream of mine, obviously, to get a lovely house as well. And it was a dream for a very long time until the pandemic happened. So for me, that was when I transitioned that dream of, I guess, it's not my dream house, but the dream of even getting into the property market. So it was there, but I was just on the side as a dream. And then the pandemic happened, and it was within that year, of course, not by myself, along with my husband, but in terms of what was going through my thought process and my mind, it was within that year that I had to put so many steps in place from the credit score, because you can save, and that is great, but when it comes to buying the house, it's useless, when they have to put all of these things into, to assess you. So that was when I started to put the steps in. So I had my savings on the side, as I said, but other things like the credit score, just other tests to show, we had to borrow money just to show that we can pay it back, and things that normally we wouldn't do. But so those steps we had to put in place and achieve that dream within a year. And I was able to get a house during the pandemic, within that year. I go on the property ladder. So that's the example I would give.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you so much. We wrote very quickly. Just like Sister Auntie Irene was talking about achieving goals the other time. So I will just ask a quick question. She used the story of Peter and Jesus. And I will throw a question. Jesus said, if you build a house, you must count the cost. So you trying to build the house is you achieving the goal of building a house. So when it now comes to counting the cost, so can we please throw more light the relationship between casting and counting the cost versus your goal setting? So what role does counting the cost play in a goal setting?
I think it's as important as the goal itself. I think it's very important because that scripture that you just mentioned right now talks about the fact that if you start without just proper planning, then you're going to make a mockery of yourself, saying even the house will fail. If you don't lose your life, then glory to God. So it means the goal, the process in achieving those goals is as important as, so let me put it this way to make it more funky. So it talks about the destination and the journey. So the journey is as important as well as the destination.
Fact.
So doesn't mean that you won't have challenges. It doesn't mean that you won't fail in the process. But it's the failure is still part of the process of actualizing the goal or getting to the destination. So just to answer the question before I give my superior. so the bottom line is I think is as important as the goal.
No, I mean, that's spot on. I think it's the same thing I want to say. I just want to chip in that when you hear things like, when you think about what he just said, the steps to the goal is actually your lived experience. So that is your life. If we think about it, let's think about your PhD. So you wanted to get a PhD, that's your goal. It's a destination, isn't it? But then you spent 3+ years, because I'm married to an academic, so I lived his PhD with him, at least a good chunk of it. And then you're working towards his PhD. It was the library, it was the searching for things, it was the conferences, it was the money, the fees, the mental torture sometimes. That's the experience of a PhD. Then the rest of us who knew that you had a goal will turn up on graduation and go, hey, congratulations, mate.
Exactly.
But we are living with you in the goal. The goal is a day, you wear a nice gown, you return it, take some pictures, and then you get home and go, oh my goodness, I need a job. It's a new goal, isn't it? Yeah. And then the lived experience of that goal is jobs.ac.uk every morning, tidying up your CV. So what I'm saying is when you're setting a goal, realize that you are dictating the course of your life and what you're going to do day in, day out with the days that God has given you. So if it's not something that's leading to anything that makes sense, I'm not going to make my lived experience a goal that's a moment of, what was that even about? Yeah, so...
Anti-IRA.
As you get older.
So we were talking about counting the cost. Of course, the cost you will mention sometimes will be limited to the information you have access to, the experiences of people you've seen, or even your knowledge as an individual. But in life, we know there are unforeseen costs that may come your way. So how do we respond to unforeseen costs? So let's say the Lord has instructed you to do this, or you want to become this. It's part of your vision. You have that clear direction. But why counting the cost per se? You didn't figure out is certain things. How do you respond to unforeseen costs or unforeseen events that happen in your journey, just like you've said?
Which I have just one answer. That it's very easy to just say, bounce back, readjust, reassess, but it's not that easy. I remember when I graduated from the university, my first degree, and in Nigeria they call something NYSC, International Youth Service Corps, and I went there, and my dad was in sick bed for like 3 months, and eventually I just got a call very early in the morning one day that I was going to be with the Lord. That to me was a first reality check of my life. Being the firstborn, had about 4 siblings and mom trading, like, wow. So that day, I had many people coming to say it's well. I understand it's well, but what are you talking about? So it's like, I'm going to bounce back. I'm going to go back. But it wasn't very easy. I think the shorty for me that time was that God had already told me something about my life, and I was running without word. I was like, okay, God, you've said this about me. And I kept to those words. So every other encouragement I was getting on the external were just an addendum, addition to what God had already told me. If I didn't have that, I was going to collapse, because everything they were saying was like, just aspire to perspire kind of thing, because I wasn't the one. You've not lost your dad. How dare tell me that you can feel my pain? You can't feel my pain, man. You can't. So, and I think it's the same thing when they didn't achieve their goals, and it's very easy to just say, reflect, reassess. The question is, how do I do that? And I think one thing that really helped me, apart from the fact that God was really very important in all this, and I heard of it, was my accountability partner. I have one friend of mine, my prayer partner, knows everything about just one. I have my inner circle. I think I have two part of my inner circle, and God has really blessed me with people in the UK as well. I think community is very important. People that they're not just in love with you because of what they want to get from you. These people, they're part of your life when you had nothing. Yeah. These people really cares. It's very easy to have friends when you have your house, you have your money, and everything, like you're taking your goals and you have many friends, people want to learn from you, and it's beautiful. But one or two people that, with or without those things, they will still be a part of your life. I think they'll be very instrumental in those moments that you plan to get this thing done and you are crying at the middle of the night, and you can just pick up your phone like, please, I just need you to just pray for me. Pray with me at this time. I think those people, God has actually positioned them in our lives for such a time like that. And they are very happy, even them as well, they are very happy with your success. I'm talking to people that even the things that they want to achieve, when you achieve that before them, they are genuinely happy for you. So when things go the other way around, you will see them there with you. Even if they don't really call you every day, you know that they are praying for you. So that's one thing I would say, and I'm saying this because this is something I've tried. I don't know, there might be thousands of ways but this is something I've tried using my dad's example.
Fantastic.
Anthony,
I totally agree with what has been said. I think life is full of twists and turns, and it's very possible, as you said, that you may have a goal that you're unable to achieve due to unforeseen circumstances. So I think the journey, it's not about you trying to avoid these challenges that may arise or the obstacles. It's about how you pick yourself back up that really matters. And it is that you pick yourself back up. Now, it may not be easy, but that's the only way to not give up and carry on with that goals. And just Bible verses that comes to mind, I don't know the exact, but I mean, we have verses around everything works out together for good. So you know God is preparing this for you. You know God is working with you. So I wouldn't even see it as failure. If you don't achieve that goal in that time, you know that something better, as a person of faith, your mind is that something better is coming. God is doing this for a reason. There's a purpose. So I'm going to eventually achieve it, but maybe not at this time. Maybe you may need to, as I said, reassess and create a new goal, but you have to be at a place where you're able to pick yourself back up. And I think, like I said, that verse can help you remember that, look, it's not the end of the world. Everything works out together for good. Yes, I've just lost my dad. It's hard. I haven't lost my dad. So I can't really say I understand what you've been through, but I know that it's hard, but you can get there with time. So time heals a lot of things, and so if you give it time, you'll get there eventually. And I totally agree with what he said around building your own tribe, your own people around you for that mental support, spiritual support, and all these things. So it's important to select people that you can have within in your corner, that you know that they would always be there for you. That's it.
So good, yeah.
oh, beautiful. So very quickly, I'm moving to just the monitoring and evaluation part of things, because I'm a public health specialist. And by the way, I know I had to introduce myself the other time. You'll know my name by the end of the episode. So when should monitoring and evaluation of a goal take place? Should it be bi-monthly? Should it be monthly? Should it be every quarter? Should it be at the end of the year? Just keep the dice rolling, and at the end of the year, you just check how did I fare? Did I do well? And then, so when should monitoring and evaluation take place?
You want to go first? So I think for me, I would say really quickly, it's personality based. I need micromanaging because I know that I procrastinate when I don't want, if I'm afraid, if I'm scared, if I'm confused, I just don't do anything. I go into almost like a sort of stagnant mode. So I need somebody to every so often, I mean, it could be weekly, say, look, how far have you gone with this thing? Other people are really good at self-management. So it's kind of like a manager at the office. There's some employees, just tell him to do it, he'll do it. And then there are others where you'd be like, look, have you done that thing? Have you done that thing? Have you done that thing? So for me, I know who I am. I know my issues. I know the problems I have. So I have accountability partners. But for you, it might be different.
Yeah, it's different for me. I don't like micromanagement at all. Even the moment I sense micromanagement, I'm like, no, leave me alone. But I don't procrastinate as much. So I am more of, yeah, I am. It's quite funny but I like what you said about personality because I've done this test over and over again. And I fall, when you talk about color coding, I fall between red and yellow. So yellow in such a way that I'm so sociable, red in such a way that I'm like that, a go-getter. And it's quite funny because I will be really fast with what you said around when you set goals yourself and you achieve it and you forget the element of the Holy Spirit and God. I find myself there a lot because my personality is that once I'm determined and I put my mind to it, most likely I would achieve it. And then I think that I'm giving myself that glory instead of God. So that's the danger that can happen when we set these goals but not put in the God element. So it's very important. Like I always have to, remind myself that God, look, these are my goals. These are my plans. Let me leave it to you to direct me. I want to be able to discern. Remember I said at the start, what do you want me to focus on? Because if you leave it to me, I would focus. Most likely I would achieve because that's just my, and I find people with similar personality like that. Go-getters. We want to achieve it and we thrive on goals. And once we achieve is the next one. I'm like that. So, I don't like micromanagement, as you said. It's personality. So, self-management works better for me. But I think it's okay for you to, evaluate as you deem fit. It would be different for everyone. So quarterly, biannually, as you said, but it would be different. So once you understand and know yourself, or weekly, as you said, daily for some people, but understand yourself to know what is best suited to you when it comes to evaluating. And you can change it around the time. If you think that, this one is getting too longer, it's okay to amend it. These things, in my opinion, should not be rigid, so you can change things around as you go.
This auntie sounds good. Please don't. I just want to be like you, and so we all said today. Some people still. Why do you think people find it difficult to achieve goals? Why do you think so? I mean, what do you think about why people find it difficult to achieve their goals?
I think achieving goals, to be candid, it's not easy. It's difficult. Like it demands a lot of self-discipline, motivation, getting people in your cycle that can encourage you. You need God, very important. And anything that is not easy would definitely be very difficult to achieve and the reason why we have a word like this, we will always have people at the top, people in the middle class, and people at the lower level. It's just the way the world is. So if all of us achieve our goals, you get what I mean? So it's the thing, we can't all achieve our goals because the way the world is, there is always the principle of the good and the bad. And the bad, unfortunately, you should not be part of that. But it's just like the poor you always have around you. So in other words, people that would be so lazy in actualizing their goals will always be there, and they will always want to beg and all of that. But I think in the kind of environment we have, and especially with the social distractions that we have around now, I think sometimes you have to pick your phone, and even on Instagram alone, you're spending like hours. On Facebook, sometimes like let me just pick up something on Facebook, I spend like 3-4 hours checking every other thing.
Exactly.
If I keep doing that every day, it's going to be very difficult to achieve my goals because now there is this kind of diversion into something else. So I think it's very difficult to achieve goals, and because of one thing, self-discipline. It's not easy to be disciplined. It's not. And I can talk about this for as long as possible, but that's what I'm just saying. Like discipline is one major thing.
Hopefully, we'll have another episode where we talk about the routine of self-discipline. And but Irene, very quickly, do you have any other reasons to why people find it difficult to achieve their goals?
I mean, I think it's it's endless reasons, but I think just like what he said about self-discipline, that touches on almost everything. I would really say fear and a lack of self-awareness. So I think a lot of us just go, wow, big goal, that's not even possible. So we shut down before God can even step in and say, look, don't worry, you can kill the lion, you can kill the bear, you can kill Goliath. We don't even let that come into play. Okay, so mindset is a huge thing, a mindset of fear. I think then the second thing is self-awareness. A lot of people are setting goals that are not for them. Really, really pointless goals that are not. If I set a goal to be the best chess player in the world, it's a waste of time. My mind does not work like that. My children are 9 and 7. They play chess. I do not know the name of all the things on the board. I have no desire. But if you ask me about the history of art, I can start throwing out names from, I don't know, centuries before. Why? Because I'm wired that way. So if you're creative, don't try to be an accountant. Don't try to be somebody else. It's about self-awareness. Very quickly, I realized, probably when I was 13, that chemical equations made no sense to me. I ran in the other direction. I'm really happy I did. So set your goals according to who you are and who God has made you.
Beautiful. And how do we generate the willpower? Because a friend once told me at work, she said, because she finds it, and it's that place of self-awareness, isn't it? Because you've been doing that monitoring and evaluation to see how best you work, how best you function. It says, I just take pictures instead, because pictures kind of bring those things to life better than maybe documenting things or having mental notes. You're like, yeah, I would love to, because she loves to have nice Instagram pictures. So she has nice Instagram pictures of where she wants to go, and then she puts them on her wall, and then like, yeah, I want to go there. So that helps her to save each time she looks at that picture. So do we have like practical guides or advice we would love to give people?
I think with willpower, it's like the way I give example of myself where I feel like I have in many situations, I find that willpower comes to me naturally. So I find that for some it would be natural, for some they have to learn it. Things that it can do, practical things, I would say maybe writing it down can help to, just like you said, visualize where you're trying to go. The reason in the first place, the motivation that he mentioned, all of that can help you like, okay, why do I even want to do this? Reaffirming, or affirming it to yourself. Some people say it to themselves multiple times can also help. But I think that would be, for some, they have to learn it. And that also ties into personalities. Some people are quite relaxed about things. It doesn't mean that it's a bad thing. It's, so within that, they just take it one step at a time. And it might seem, I'm sorry, I wanted to use the word slow, but again, that's just me. I'm not very patient. That's, one of my downside, but you have to be patient with these things. Like, even in general, you find, just tying back to the question prior to this one, where everyone wants everything like that in this generation. That's what I've noticed, the Gen Zs. The Gen Zs, it's like everything has to be like, they're not patient at all. And with goals, it's a journey. You have to take your time. But anyways, with willpower, I think it's similar to that. Be patient about it. If you find that and don't copy, don't compare yourself. I'm like this other person. Don't try to be like them. Take your time and try to learn things that can help you by, like I said, reaffirming, okay, this is what I want to do. Say it to yourself. Some people say some great words to themselves in the mirror. Tell them, say, okay, this is the reason why I want to achieve this. I think that would help. But for some, it's natural. So I didn't really, personally, I didn't have to do much learning. It just comes naturally, like in terms of wanting to achieve things.
Beautiful. And amazing. Always achieving goals, isn't it? So
I wish it was shareable.
I just put on the hot spot so we can all connect.
Share with everyone.
So in closing, I would love us to just take turns, give just closing statements, closing remarks, as it were, as far as achieving goals, the recipe is concerned. So you can just give closing remarks. Where should I start?
I can start.
Okay, I'll start with my
So I can
doctor.
dodge.
Yeah.
Okay, two scriptures have been coming to my mind since the beginning of this podcast. Number one is that many are the plans of man, many are the devices in the heart of man, but only the counsel of God can be established. And I think that scripture says only the purpose of God will be established. So we've talked so much about purpose today, saying that you will always fail in where God has not really positioned or empowered you. But you will always be like a genius in things that God has empowered you to do. And it will be as though you have something like you are powerful. So when you ask a question about willpower, I just remember that scriptures that says that is a spirit in man, and the inspiration of the Almighty gives him understanding. So one thing I want to say as a conclusion from my end is that we cannot trivialize the place of God. God is important, and this is not just because of religion. He's the source of our lives, and we cannot exist outside the source of our life. And with that, when we know God and we understand purpose, people will think we are super smart, although we are. But if you do something that you have not been empowered, positioned, gifted, designed to do, then you begin to fail in those areas. Like I always say, I'm sorry, I'm going to end with this, that being a science student, I love biology, I love chemistry, but I don't like physics. And every time that I have to sit down for a physics exam, I get B. And then biology, mathematics, chemistry, A. And I tell my friends in engineering, I said, if I've studied something related to engineering, I wouldn't have graduated with a first class. Then you think, now that I made a first class, you think, wow, this guy is fast man. No, it's just because I'm doing something that I enjoy and I love to do. If I dare go to biology, to engineering, oh goodness. So just do what you've been called or you've been designed to do, and you will see that you begin to flow. You may need effort, you may need to you have to be diligent, disciplined, but you will see that you get better results in what God has positioned, designed you to be, than just trying to chase after shadows.
Thank you so much, Doctor. And Macy.
So I would also put a Bible verse, Proverbs 16:3. Commit to the Lord whatever you do, and He will establish your plans. So it's absolutely fine to set goals as Christians and pursue them, but pursue them with the confidence that God's got you and God would help you reach that goal. Be careful to ensure that your goals aligns with God's will for you. Submit and surrender to the leadership of God when it comes to setting and achieving those goals. And where you don't achieve the goals, it's not about failure. It's not about the obstacles. It's about how you pick yourself back up, but also knowing that everything worked out together for good.
Thank you.
So I'll just basically piggyback off what they both said. I think that there's an epidemic of competition, striving, and just goals for the sake of this is what makes me have worth or look like I have worth. And so that inner searching of the heart to be like, where does my worth come from? Does it come from what I achieve? And I tend to be a very works-based person, even in the way I serve God. There's some people, if they don't pray one day, they're like, oh, well, it's fine. I didn't mean to. I would say, oh, am I still a good Christian? Am I still this? So if you have the mindset where your affirmation of sonship or peace or sense of self comes from all these goals, you will never be happy. There are people like, I'm not going to name names, but billionaires who are not happy and they have ticked off every single box because there's a God-shaped hole in everybody. So if we are just achieving goals because we think we'll be happy, that's already a miss. So I think especially for our generation, our time, when I was younger, I couldn't see what other people were doing in different countries. But now you can open your phone up. You can open your LinkedIn. I want to announce that I've just been appointed. And you're like, my God.
Exactly.
I want to announce I just got 10 rejections in the last month. So it's all about, I do not want to compare myself to others because then I'm not wise.
Exactly.
I want to make sure that these goals, I'm not being a loser. I'm not putting less worth on myself than God has said. If God says I can be king, I can be king. So it's based on, as they said, God, but also realizing that other people's race, not your race, and what looks really shiny might not be as good when you get in the end. So think carefully. Yeah.
Thank you so very much. Thank you so much. And thank you, listeners. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining with us to the end of the episode. And my name is Emmanuel.
Emmanuel.
I work as infection surveillance nurse in one of the hospitals in the NHS Trust in England. So, I guess that's about me. Every other thing you get to know as we journey together. Thank you very much for coming, my sisters and my brother.
You're most welcome. Thank you, guys.
Okay.